everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Chris Yee.
And today we're taking a look at the third expansion for Wingspan, Wingspan Asia, as they continue to go through the different continents.
Oh.
But I don't think Wingspan Antarctica will be
I want the penguins,
a
Tom.
promo pack of penguins.
I'm okay with that,
In
actually.
fact, that's what it should be called, promo pack of penguins. Call me, Jamie. We'll talk about it.
Peter Piper primed a promo pack of penguins.
So this is unusual for each expansion has had something about it. Well, Europa was more birds, had some new birds and new types of birds.
Good first expansion, right? Yeah.
Oceania added a wild resource, which really changed the game up. This one does not do that, except that this one is playable by itself as a two-player game.
Right. And it also can expand the game to 6 and 7 players, Tom.
But more importantly, pretty much everything we're talking about. So Chris is going to show you some of what's new in this expansion. If you're looking at to play it as a two-player game, check out our review of Wingspan because it plays almost the same with some differences, which I think you might be talking about.
Yeah, just the little extra board and so. Yeah, we're operating under the assumption you know how to play Wingspan for this review.
All right, so here's what's in this set, and we'll be right back.
Here's kind of a simplified setup of Wingspan Asia. I'm operating under the assumption that you are familiar with Wingspan, and I'm going to teach you a little bit of the differences here. The rulebook is going to highlight that this is both a standalone two-player version of Wingspan, which I'll talk about some of that, or it's an expansion to Wingspan, in which case you just added new cards and new boards and stuff. Or you can play the flock mode, which is a 6 and 7 player version. I am not going to set this monstrosity up, where you can have 7 boards, 2 halves of the table, and use a dial here to kind of simulate 2 players playing simultaneously. So if you had 6 players, the blue and the white player would take turns at the same time. Once they are done, then the red and the yellow player would take turns at the same time. And then there's a 7-player side of the dial over here, so that there's always 2 people taking turns simultaneously, and that's the most we're going to discuss about that. You have new player colors, you have white, and you have black as the 2 new player colors. Now let's talk about this as a standalone 2-player game. There's a few differences here. First, you'll notice that the main boards here, which by the way, are double-sided to be regular, and then this also works with the Nectar expansion. So in the regular version here of playing just the duet mode, the 2-player mode, players are going to seed their board here with these half yin-yang symbols, and they're going to put those onto every spot of the board where you can put cards onto. And that is because as you build out cards onto this board here from hand, you will then take this marker here and place it somewhere onto the duet board. This duet board replaces the scoring objectives. So there are 4 different scoring objectives here that you're trying to have majority on at the end of each round, the first round through the 4th. When you take this token off of the board, you place it onto a space here that represents something that matches what you've done. So I've built into the yellow area here, kind of the grassy area. So I have to place this marker somewhere here onto the yellow grassy area. If the food that I paid for the cost of this bird has a bug or a grain or a berry, I could choose to put this onto that spot right there. If it has a specific type of nest, then I can, as this one here matches this type of nest, I could choose to put this over here. Some of these spaces will give you bonus eggs, bonus card draw, bonus food, but you just are trying to put these out here. The purpose for this is that you are trying to have the most yin-yang symbols here of your player color that match the end of round objectives, and also at the end of the game, the more of these that you have in a connected group are going to score you points, 1 per each piece that is in your largest connected group here. Now both players are going to be doing this, and unfortunately, even though these are yin-yang symbols and they fit together very nicely, only 1 player can build on a spot, and so the fact that these pieces fit together so nicely is purely aesthetic, and it's allegedly so that you can still see what the symbol is underneath there, because that might matter for different scoring purposes at the end of the round. So that's going to be the main difference here with 2 players. Also, there's a few rules. If you can't legally place something from your board out here, this becomes a little wild resource that you can use later. The objectives you see here are going to score for your markers, for example, the most in the green forest area. Whoever has the most there is going to earn points, and then the other player will put theirs underneath here. This is going to help reduce the number of action cubes that you have on a turn. And then also this is going to determine who is going to be the new first player. This person up here gets points, and then the person on the bottom will get the first player token. So you basically can see at that point here that's going to be the main differences from the original Wingspan. It comes with a score pad here for both sides, the regular side as well as the solo mode here against the Atoma. There are solo Atoma cards. Speaking of the Atoma, it will come with more Atoma cards here that will play the two-player duet mode so that they will put markers out onto this duet board and simulate your opponent that way. There are the private goals here that are going to, some of them are going to be new, some of them are going to be familiar from previous expansions. Let's see if I can't get the camera to focus up a bit here. So you can see some of them have consecutive birds in ascending or descending order in a row, birds with different body parts in their names, colors in their names. Some of these even have beaks pointing in different directions. So some of these are new that I haven't seen in previous games, but some of them are also going to be kind of familiar. And then you also have different card effects here that some of them are going to be similar to previous expansions, but some will also be fairly new. There is more of this type of effect. All players lay 2 eggs. You get to lay 2 additional ones. Things that help all players but help you more. Lay an egg on this bird for each other bird in the same row. When played, steal a bug from each of your neighbors. Each neighbor from whom a bug was stolen can get any food from the supply that they wish. When activated, up to 3 times draw a card from the deck. When you stop, if the bird's total wingspan is less than 110 centimeters, tuck them behind this bird, if not discard them. So a few more aspects of push your luck kind of put into these hunting type cards here. Roll any 2 dice. If you roll at least 1 fish, cash a fish from the supply onto this bird. All players may discard a card from their hand to gain a fish from the supply. So there's a couple of different ways to use the dice in new ways and to play some push your luck games here. Push your luck kind of things at the end of each round. Roll all 5 dice. You can re-roll any of them up to 2 times. If at least 3 of them show the rats, when you stop, draw 2 bonus cards and keep 1, then reset the bird feeder. So you can see that these have just different effects, a lot of the same birds here, the zebra dove. And of course, if you just want more birds and you don't want to mess with the 2-player mode or the 6 to 7 player mode, there's just more birds that do all sorts of different things. Game end effects, copy different scoring objectives, end of round effects, when activated, when played effects. So you just get to see here a little bit of the different types of birds that are in here, and that's an overview of Wingspan Asia.
So I have a couple things. I like Wingspan a lot. I want to be really clear, and I really like Wingspan, and more cards for Wingspan always makes me happy. I never once in my life thought, man, I wish I could play it with 6 players. In fact, as a general rule of thumb, I straight up refuse to play it with 5. Now, to be fair, this expansion, I went over the rules of the 6 to 7 player. You're playing basically simultaneously, which, as a heads up, you could also just do with 2 copies of Wingspan. I'm sure some people out there want this. I'm not trying to rain on your parade if you love it, but I have no desire. I didn't try it, and I won't. I never will.
I refuse, yeah. So it allows you to play basically 2 games simultaneously. 2 people are the predicated players of the turn, and then it rotates around. And
you even have separate birds.
You have separate bird feeders. You have separate bird boards.
Just play 2 games of it. But anyway,
yeah, right.
Again, if you like that, so be it.
Fantastic, right? This can just serve as just an expansion. More bird cards. Some more eggs of a different color.
I like the new bird cards. I especially like the push your luck ones. I'm always a big fan of that. It's small push your luck. Mm-hmm. In fact, sometimes I'll be like, I got what I wanted. You know what? I'm done. No reason. But just having that little bit of extra makes me happy.
I like the cards too, where you can hunt. You can flip over a certain number of cards. You can flip up to 3 cards as long as the total wingspan is under a certain measure, you can keep all of them. You can tuck them under there. That's a really great mechanism because it's not very long. It doesn't disrupt anything. It's very quick. Boom, boom. 2 cards in. You know, I'm good. I scored 2 points. That feels really good. There's also the cards that are kind of mutually beneficial to the whole table.
I was going to say, I like those because what they do is they actually bring it down. Sometimes the game can feel a little solitaire-ish. It's not because you're fighting over not fighting, but the food in the middle.
I'm fighting.
Maybe the birds out there and, you know, the goals. This gives you one more thing. Someone else goes in and go, hey, Tom, you get a food. I'm like, I do? Well, thank you.
Yeah, I love it.
They got 2 or 3 food, you know, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
Have some eggs.
I like those a lot.
I agree. I think for a game like this, especially because this can function as a 2-player standalone game, it means I give you a little bit, I get more. I'm very fine with that. But that mechanism works just as fine in a 4 to 7 player game, for example. Everybody gets a little bit. Oh, cool! Now I have an egg that I can play out this bird. I was going to have to wait 1 more action cycle to do that. I like it. I think all the new bird stuff in here, I really like that.
I want to come back to that at the very end for final rating. There's one small caveat to that. But I want to talk about the 2-player game here. So before we get into the 2-player game, I am mind-boggled at the component choice here. There are yin-yang symbols, which as soon as I saw them, and I saw that this version is called duet mode, I immediately thought this is a cooperative game. Because that is what the yin-yang symbol is all about.
Balance, togetherness,
yes,
make it
it's also
whole.
called duet, which is not usually 2 people fighting in the middle of a song. It is not a duet. It is Wingspan Duel. And those yin-yang tokens, which look like they fit together so beautifully.
And they do.
They do, right. Never do. They are used to mark spots on a board, which would be much better marked with rings so you could see what's underneath them.
That was Stonemeyer's justification, was that the yin-yang symbol, even though only one can go there, you still can see underneath it.
Again, a cube would have been fine. I'm really thrown off by that. I know it's not a big deal. Doesn't affect gameplay at all much. It just bugs me, those 2 things. That it's called duet, and it uses yin-yang symbols, and yet, nah. And it almost feels like it's Asia, so we felt like we had to use these things. And we want to say duet because that makes sense bird-wise. But I was actually a little disappointed because I was like, ooh, a 2-player cooperative game. That's interesting.
Sure,
but it's
right.
not here. It's a fight, and what it replaces those goals. Which is, I'll say I'd rather play this 2-player version than the goal version.
I agree. So, a lot of times people say, well, you shouldn't complain about what you were hoping for. But when it sounds so obvious, and when you see things that so obviously look like...
They fit together. Yeah.
Right. But as a 2-player game, I really like this. And I'm going to explain my little background on this. I don't particularly like Wingspan that much. I've had a lot of very boring and bad 4-player, 5-player games of it. Because every time someone says, hey, do you want to try Wingspan? Oh, sure. I haven't played it for a little while. I'll give it a try. It's a 5-player game all of a sudden. It's too slow. It's too long. Just kind of chopping this down to 2 players specifically, having that little sideboard with a mechanism that's specifically for 2 players, I think it's a great idea for this because I do like the Wingspan systems when it's quicker of a game.
Sure. I also like that this version, these scoring methods, encourages you to get more birds out on the board, which I'm a big fan of. I mean, the egg strategy is still a legit one, although they're trying to calm that down with cards. You can tell they're trying to push you into doing other strategies than just put a bunch of eggs. But getting more birds out can really help you win those goals. And as dumb as it is, the rows and columns or whatever the goals might be, it feels more interactive rather than in the base game. Occasionally we'd be finished and I'd be like, so, what was the goal again? You know, because I'd given up on it halfway through. In this 2-player one, you don't have to give up. You can literally do everything that's there. The goals themselves might say birds with this nest, and you just don't draw the right kind or whatever. But if the board says put them in this row, I can do that.
Yes, I agree. I think that there's a little bit more fun choice there. I will change which bird I want to build out or put out into my sanctuary first based on an objective. And I feel that I have more of that drive in this version than in previous ones. I really want to put up this water one, but I really want to try and get the majority in grassland scoring. So it's ever so slightly less efficient in my engine. So I will make that decision to try and snipe those 3 points from you. I like that. I like the little compensation of if I get the objective on the top, you get the first player token for the next round. Little decisions like that make this feel like a good all-around package.
And you can buy just this. You could give this to someone as a gift, even if you want to get them into Wingspan. This is not a bad way to do that because, again, it contains everything you need, although I've run out of eggs. But, again, you could use anything you want, I suppose. I like this game. I'm giving it this expansion, but I'm giving it a 7. And you might wonder, I mean, again, that's still liking. I think this expansion is fine. But there's a couple reasons for that. 1 to 2 player is good, but the 6-7 player stuff I don't need. So that's extra stuff I don't need. But the bird abilities are cool. And I don't want bird lovers to get upset with me. I just don't find the Asian birds to be particularly interesting. There's a couple in there.
I'm out.
There's a couple in there. I want my South American birds and my African birds. I'm so excited because there's just the wide, cool variety. These birds, there's a lot of similarities of many of them to the European boards and North American boards, which we saw. When we got to the Oceania, I was like, wow, look at all these weird birds. I'm very excited about the next 2 continents.
I don't want the bird people angry. Look at these weirdos.
And again, that's a very personal thing. But other than that, it's more stuff. But here's the deal. If you have Wingspan and you're not looking to play it 2-player,
right,
I would probably get this after Europa. I would get this maybe even after, because the Oceania adds in the things. I think this is good. I think it's fine. I think it's cool that it's a 2-player game. And as a 2-player game, I'd give it an 8. You know, it's kind of weird. I'm mixing it, so I'll do that. It's an 8 as a 2-player game, but it's a 7 as an expansion because it's fine. It's cool.
Okay. So your score, I think, on Wingspan, basic Wingspan, is a little higher than that, right?
It's like 8.5 or 9. I really like Wingspan.
Right. My rating for base Wingspan is like a 5.
Now everyone just turned off the video.
Right, yeah. So that's why I saved that at the end. I'm giving this one a 7.5.
Okay.
This is a huge improvement for me because I like the 2-player focused designs, the design decisions around this. Making it a 2-player game for me is a huge boom. I still have some core problems from the base game. I think the food market is one of my biggest hangups. I don't like, and that's more of a core Wingspan issue.
Sure. So I like the food market, but yes, I get it. But I think there's more ways to get food in this one.
I think so. I think that the bird abilities are more interesting. You know, I might steal something from you, and then immediately you get your choice of any food from the market because I stole a food from you.
Yeah, there's nothing I like. That's a cool interaction, which is better than most games.
Yeah, it's not just straight up stealing. You actually get a really good compensation from. There's little things like that I think make it a bit more flexible. I like the 2-player focus. I like the little area majority kind of a feeling thing with all of it. This is a huge improvement for me. And it also cuts down the opportunity of me having this out and all of a sudden 5 people gather around and me being stuck.
Not everyone's as popular as you, Chris.
That's what I'm getting at. No, I think this is a great 2-player package. So 7.5 from me, a major improvement, I think. And this is the one that I would personally play.
All right, now bring on those South American birds. I really want to see them.
That's true.
Anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Chris Yee.
And we're not playing Wingspan at 7.